It's holiday season once again, and today I'm going to show you what my recommendations are for complete bass rigs. Whether you have $100 or $1,000, I'm going to show you how to best utilize your budget to get the most bass for the least amount of money. Let's start with the least expensive. If you are on the tightest budget ever, you do still have options, and I would take a look at Glary. In fact, they do an entire bass package for less than 150 bucks. And it comes in a bunch of different colors. You got red and yellow and blue and white. These starter packages are gonna give you everything you need. The bass, the amp, the cables, a tuner, everything that you need to start. One proviso I would offer here though is that when you're paying bottom dollar for stuff, it's not gonna be that nice. A while ago, Glary sent me their GP2, which is basically just a slightly upgraded version of what you'd get in the pack, and after testing it thoroughly, I can say confidently that it's okay. Just about any bass that you will buy will benefit from a setup, and all that means is adjusting the various components of the bass to make it as comfortable to play as possible. Things like adjusting the bridge for string height and intonation, filing the fret edges so that they're smooth, making sure that the neck is straight and playable. This is also something that you can do yourself at home with just some basic tools, but if you're not comfortable with it, then taking it to your local guitar store to have it set up is 100% worth it. Getting back to the Glary pack, the one main weakness of this is going to be the amp. It's just way too small to be all that great, and it's only going to be useful for home practice because they don't actually get that loud. If you're in a situation where you're going to just have to use headphones with this anyway, like you're in an apartment and you can't be very loud, then one alternative I would suggest is looking at the Zoom B1X4 effects pedal. This pedal has a lot to offer, especially in terms of practice tools like a built-in drummer, a tuner, and every effect you could ever want. You will, however, need a pair of headphones, or you'll need to send its output to an amp to hear it, as there is no built-in speaker. I talk a little bit more about this pedal in my silent practice options video up here, but suffice it to say that at $100 this is a really good value. As a practice unit, if you don't want to deal with an amp or if you're on the go a lot, this is super portable and sounds great, and it's really cheap. This pedal plus the Glary GP2 will run you about $300, assuming you already have headphones. But even if you do need to buy headphones, the Audio-Technica M40s will only run you another $100. So you're looking at like $400 for a really good sounding portable bass rig. But if you want to be loud enough to play with a drummer and you're still on a relatively tight budget, then you'll need a decently powerful amp, and for that we're going to head over to Reverb. Reverb is this really cool online store that sells both used and new gear, so it's like all the best parts of a Guitar Center and eBay. There's an affiliate link down in the description. If you use that to buy something from Reverb, that helps me out, and I thank you in advance for that. But moving on to amps, the lowest I would go for an amp that you can play in a band setting with would be 100 watts, and my top pick for one of those is a Fender Rumble 100. These amps are really fantastic. They're super light, they're plenty loud, and they have a DI out so you can plug them into a PA, plus they have some built-in effects like an overdrive, which are really fun. If you buy these new, they're about $350, but they've been out for a really long time, so they're not that difficult to find used, and then you can get them for even less. Worth noting here though is that if you start with the Zoom B1X4, you can continue to use this pedal with the amp. But if you start out with like a tiny crappy practice amp, that just becomes obsolete once you upgrade. So, something else to consider there. So let's say you've got a little bit more money in your budget and you want to get a nicer bass. Well, at the next step up in price point, you have a ton of options, but my top recommendations are the Squier Classic Vibe series if you're looking for something a little bit more traditional sounding, or the Sterling Sub-Series Stingray, which is another great option. Or if you're looking for something a little bit more modern, the Yamaha TRBX 304 is a fantastic instrument for the money. Now these basses are gonna run you about $300 to $500, and they are an incredible value for the money. I can totally attest to the quality of these basses. I've taken both of these to gigs and they are great. If you're still not sure which direction to go, then my top recommendation would actually be one of these, the Classic Vibe 60s Jazz Bass. Crazy versatile, classic sounds, you cannot go wrong with one of these. Any of the basses that I've mentioned paired with the Rumble 100 will make a great starting bass rig for only about $850. Now the one thing you might be missing here is just like a 1/4-inch cable because they're not going to be included, and you may also be missing out on a tuner. You can use phone apps for that, they'll work fine enough, or you can go and get yourself a Zoom pedal because these things are great. Can you tell that I like this thing? Moving on up, if you've got about $1,000 to spend on a bass rig, I would put your extra money toward an amp. Now I have already reviewed a Rumble 500, which I own and I really like it, but you may also look at the Ampeg Rocket 210. These amps were just released earlier this year, and they are really fantastic. They're not quite as light, and they are a little bit more expensive than the Fender Rumble, but they sound fantastic, specifically the built-in overdrive. That part of it just absolutely blows the Fenders away. Either way you go, they're very similarly powered, so they're going to be similar levels of volume, and both of them would be great for any rehearsal or gig. So those would be my picks for complete bass rigs at every price point, but let's talk about accessories. So let's say the bass player in your life already has a bass and an amp. What are some fun holiday gifts you can get them? Well, let's actually start with a couple things that I wouldn't get them. Top of my list is strings. Now, unless you know exactly what kind of strings they like and what strings will fit their bass, it's kind of a crapshoot trying to get the right ones. There are different gauges and lengths and styles, and it comes down to like what fits their instrument and what fits their preferences, and musicians are notoriously picky, so I would just stay out of it. Generally, I would also not recommend buying somebody pedals unless you know exactly what they want, because again, musicians are really picky and there's a lot of stuff out there. However, I will say that if you know for a fact that they don't have any pedals, this is basically all the pedals, so, you know, get a Zoom. I promise I'm not a Zoom shill. They've never sponsored me. I've never spoken to them before. I just picked this thing up for myself with my own money, and I really like it, and I think it is a fantastic value. God, they really should be sponsoring me, though. Things that I think are a really safe bet for most bass players are things like maintenance kits. These contain a lot of really useful tools, but they're not the sort of thing that most people would buy for themselves. Straps are another thing that I think are a pretty safe bet. In particular, I like Couch brand straps. They make a really wide variety, including ones with cats on them, but the ones that I really like are these automotive upholstery ones. So they just look really cool, and they've got them in lots of different colors. There's definitely something for everybody here. Another thing you might consider is picking up a stand. I recently did a short video on this gold tone stand. This thing is super compact. It just fits in my bag, but it ends up being really sturdy and will fit just about every instrument you can throw at it. Yeah, this thing's great. If you're still completely lost on what to get somebody, then just get them a gift card to Reverb, and then they can buy what they want. You're not lame for getting them a gift card. You're cautious. There's nothing wrong with that. So those are my recommendations for bass purchases this holiday season. If you have any questions, leave them down below and we will help you out. Happy holidays. AMP out.